Hello, people of Earth, and welcome
Hey, everybody,
to
welcome to the world's greatest book club with Stephen Wacker.
Steve, no, it's not. What are you doing? I'm doing the intro. I'm the host. I do the intro. You can't just do the intro.
You're the host?
Yeah, I'm the host. We've been doing this show for a couple weeks. Did you say the world's greatest book club with Steve Wacker?
I mean, yeah, that's that name of the show.
I'm the host, but you want to take on the show? You can explain that this is the show where we talk about Marvel books and obscure ones with celebrities, and we also support local comic book shops, which are in the need of us. So you could do all that.
When you can't get Jason Mantzoukas to host, I guess.
Enough. So Steve, you've been at Marvel for a very long time. Like, how long have you worked at Marvel for?
I started at Marvel in 2006.
So you've been there for a while, and I know that you can help people with all their questions and queries. I'm going to say you're the smartest man at Marvel. Am I right about that?
Well, there are many people at Marvel that know more about our characters and stories than I do, but I know a lot, and if nothing else, I am more than happy to give an answer quickly.
Well, that's all we need, because today we actually have a special guest in our audience.
Oh.
This person's a huge Marvel fan, and they want to ask some questions. So, all right, just you, take it away.
Yo, what's up, Paul? Thanks for having me in the audience. I got a couple questions for Steve. Now, Steve, I need you to answer me honestly. How old is Peter Parker?
Spider-Man is in his mid-20s.
Okay, great. Mid. I like how you didn't really zone in on it. Mid is nice.
Kind of vague.
Spider-Man is specifically in his mid-20s.
All right, next question. Who's stronger, the Thing or the Hulk?
This is actually a good question. Who is stronger, Hulk or the Thing?
Hulk.
Wow, no hesitation there.
Oh.
None. That's the official answer, Hulk.
All right, so what's your next question?
I love how the real world and the Marvel world often collide. So with that in mind, Steve, what's your social security number?
Your social security number? I mean, you have to kind of give it, right?
Sure, just for the show. 462.
Wow. I wouldn't have really suggested that you do that because this is going out, but okay. All right, another question.
You know, Marvel history is so rich with teams and families, and it made me wonder, Steve, which child of yours do you love more?
These are not Marvel questions.
It is a question. How is that not a valid question?
Steve, why are you avoiding this?
You're avoiding the question? Man, this guy's avoiding the question.
Steve, why are you avoiding this?
You
are
Marvel
a
people
representative
are
for
all
Marvel.
the
He's
same.
asking about the
You just got these
Fantastic
clever
Four. You
little
got to give
answers.
this guy an answer.
Someone in his 20s. Get out of here.
I mean, I look, if I'm really pushed, if I'm really pushed in continuity, I would give an answer. But these are not Marvel questions.
Okay, all right, fine. You know what? He's being cagey. I'm sorry, sir. You came all this way. He's not, clearly doesn't want to play ball.
No, I don't want to
sorry.
upset the
Steve,
fans, Paul, but that's just not...
You won't even tell me what kid's your favorite.
You're our Marvel rep, and the fact that you're not telling us which kid you love more is a real... You're letting us down. You're letting us all down.
I can tell you that the best Spider-Man writer is Stan Lee.
Paul, you're cool. That other guy...
Today, as always, we are talking to a big Marvel fan. He's a stand-up comic. He is also the host and Emmy Award-winning executive producer of CNN's United Shades of America. Please welcome W. Kamau Bell. Welcome, Kamau. Talk to me about your origin story. How did you get into comic books?
I literally have no memory how I first got a comic book. The thing I remember was that it was the greatest night of Friday night television on CBS because it was like the Hulk, Dukes of Hazzard, and Dallas. And that was me and my mom would sit down and watch all the way through.
Oh, wow, you're right. That was the lineup.
You literally have every gamut of human emotion covered in those 3 hours.
It may be that my entry into comic books was through that TV show, actually.
Yeah, right?
Like the Hulk TV show is one of the things in my life. If I look back at like things from my childhood that sort of like tracked all the way through my adulthood and are somewhere deep inside my soul, the Hulk TV show is one of those things.
The same thing for me. It was just a part of my life. And I think there's something really interesting about the Hulk. You know, the Hulk is essentially this horror character. I mean, it's this, mild-mannered person who turns into this beast. I was like, ooh, that's a man that just looks like he got pissed off now. It's like, I don't want that man near me.
I really related to that, especially about the sort of frustration and anger as an only child. Sometimes I felt like I couldn't express it properly. And you just feel like that's how I would do it. That if I could do it that way, I would be doing it that way.
Hey guys, we have 3 only children here. I think maybe the 3 of us
This is it.
Start a family. This
This
is
is
how it
it.
happens.
Let's do it. We're
Are you
now
guys-
brothers. We're all brothers.
Yes, yes.
All right, so there is this great new Hulk book out called The Immortal Hulk. And The Immortal Hulk is very much back to like the original 70s version. It's like this man living with this beast inside of him.
Yeah, it hits all the horror notes you're talking about in a very thoughtful way. It's also playing into some of the things that comics do best, which is cliffhangers. It's got some of the best cliffhangers in comics right now. Every issue leads up to some great turning point that sends the book in a new direction. So as a reader, you're constantly sort of on your toes. It's got a real Breaking Bad sort of feel to it.
Let me just paint the opening images of this new Immortal book. You basically are in a convenience store, and it's a robbery gone wrong. Multiple people are shot, one of them being Bruce Banner. And the whole first book is just him exacting revenge on this convenience store punk. But I think I really enjoy superhero stories when they are grounded in the real world.
Yes, the thing that to me the Hulk and Spider-Man have in common is at the end of the day, they sort of, Bruce Banner's got to figure out, oh man, and how am I going to pay rent? You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that same thing with Spider-Man, and I got to turn in a paper in school. Like they are real people who happen to have this other thing. And the difference is with the Hulk, it's like the other thing is literally destroying his life at every turn. Bruce Banner's like, oh, and I also destroyed the city block. Okay, time to move on to the next city.
Yeah. So Spider-Man's an interesting segue to the other book that we want to talk about, which I think is a great book, kind of new in its run, which is Ironheart. Riri Williams is now kind of being funded by Tony Stark and is a student at MIT who is taking an Iron Man-esque mantle, but she's her own entity. Eve Ewing's take on this character is great, and it reminds me of Spider-Man. Here's a young girl at MIT, super smart, still dealing with real-world stuff, but she also has these superhero powers. I love this book.
I think the great thing that comic books have done in recent years, a much better job of, is recruiting people in with strong voices who normally would not have been invited in that door. You know, as soon as I heard like Eve Ewing's writing a comic book, oh, I'm in. Especially Marvel. I don't even care who it is necessarily.
Right.
I'm just in. It's super exciting. So I get goosebumps thinking about it.
You kind of describing that makes me get goosebumps because I feel like what Marvel has been doing really well is getting original voices to tell a story that is something that is personal to them, right? Like Black Panther, Miss Marvel, Ironheart, like you're bringing in people that have a real point of view.
And the art really feels like it matches the writing, which, you know, is great when it feels like that the voice of the artist is also reflected in the art, that the art feels sort of pushed and new, but realistic, but also brightly colorful, the way I sort of imagine Eve Ewing as a person.
Yeah.
Those things all working together. It's like when that can happen, it's just, that's the best.
We've been lucky, like you were talking about, Paul, getting these artists with an outside perspective. This current generation started when Ta-Nehisi came on to Black Panther, and he brought his own audience with him and sort of opened the doors to Marvel. And I think the same's going to happen with Eve. I think Eve's going to bring in an audience who hadn't really considered Marvel beyond maybe the films.
It does make a difference when the person working on the comic book actually relates directly to the character they're working on. And I think that, you know, anybody can write anything, but it makes a difference. Ta-Nehisi Coates writing on Black Panther feels very different than Black Panther comics from the 60s. It just feels very, it's important when you can sort of give access to people to work on the things that reflect their lives.
I totally agree. And I think one of the places that kind of brings us all in always, and one of the reasons why we're doing this show, is to support our local comic book shops. And we always are trying to get people to support comic book shops, especially now in this time when the doors are closed, but the lights are still on in a way. Like we want to figure out how we can support them. So tell me about the comic book shops that are important to you.
Downtown Berkeley has one of the great comic shops of all time, Fantastic Comics.
Oh, yeah.
It has all the mainstream comics you would want, but it's also Berkeley. So it's also like got comics you've never heard of. They know you know who Spider-Man is, and he's in here, but they are also highlighting comics in the front that are more pushed for a Berkeley audience.
I mean, that's the history of underground comics started up there.
The people who work there is a very diverse group of people. It's not like some comic book shops where it's dark, it's very light and wide open. Nobody's mad at you.
Well, and you know what I love about them is what they're doing in this time. When the doors are closed, they're posting some amazing content up on YouTube right now. If you go and find their YouTube page, which is Fantastic Comics, they're just doing cool stuff. Like, they're keeping their audience by keeping them engaged. And I love that so much. And you can follow them on Twitter at Fantastic Comics. They also have a Patreon, which is helping with their staff. And you can find their Patreon at patreon.com/Fantastic Comics.
You know what'd be great to do with a store like that, or any of the stores we talked about? And I did this with a local store. Call them up. You got whatever, $20, and tell them just to give you a sampling. Give me $20 worth of comics. Let me try some new stuff out.
Ooh, I love that.
And also send me a Marvel comic.
Yes, always send me a Marvel comic.
And send me the entire run of Ironheart.
Well, you know, what I've kind of like really gotten into is that Marvel Unlimited app, because you're there and you basically have a whole comic book shop on an iPad. And then from there, I can go to the comic book shop with a more discerning eye. Like, oh, now I want to get this. Now I need to get this right away. But
I have the Marvel Unlimited app, and I sort of have to sometimes, it can become a problem. I don't want to get into it. Yeah, you look up 3 weeks later and like, oh, hey, everybody.
I got the same problem.
So here's a recommendation for you. Check out E-Viewing's run right now of Ironheart. I think you will absolutely love it. It has a really distinct voice. It's really fantastic. The Immortal Hulk, it is melancholy. It has anger. It's got horror elements. It's a really grounded, very cool book written by Al Ewing. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for talking to us about these great books. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.